Everyone thought she was just there to watch. No one expected her to save the president's life. The plaza was packed, flags snapping in the wind, thousands cheering as cameras rolled live across the world. High above, in an abandoned bell tower, a young spotter pressed her eye to the scope. Her partner lay dead beside her, a sniper's bullet through his skull. Through the glass, she saw three assassins lining up their shots, one with a rifle, one with an RPG, one hidden in the shadows of a shattered window. The president stood exposed on stage, seconds away from being executed on live TV. She reached for the Snipex alligator, a weapon she was never meant to touch. Her breath froze. If she missed, history would end here. And then she pulled the trigger. Before we dive into this story, where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments. Welcome to Grateful Stories, where tales of compassion and kindness are told. Let's uncover what really happened. The bell tower shook with the first shot. Dust drifted down from the rafters, caught in a beam of light. Alyssa Monroe braced herself against the recoil of the Snipex alligator, its thunder echoing through the stone. The rifle's muzzle flash lit her face. A 14.5 millimeter round screamed into the sky, racing toward a target more than 500-600 meters away. For nearly 12 long seconds, the bullet carved its invisible path. Below, the plaza roared with life. Flags snapped in the wind. The president stepped onto the grandstand, a wall of agents shielding him from the crowd. The camera of a circling drone zoomed in. Its thermal feed glowed on Alyssa's display, tagging the faint outline of a hostile crouched behind a chimney. The AI system calculated corrections, flashing numbers in red. Through the scope, the man adjusted his weapon, unaware of her. Alyssa's heartbeat slowed, her finger tight on the trigger. If she hesitated, the shot below would never happen. 12 seconds stretched like eternity. The round found its mark. The hostile collapsed, body dropping lifeless beside the rifle. Radio static broke into shouting. First hostile, neutralized, repeat. Target down. Alyssa hardly listened. Her hands already pushed the massive barrel toward the next threat. On a rooftop across the square, a man lifted an RPG launcher, the weapon angled toward the grandstand, ready to unleash fire. Alyssa's screen flashed a new solution. Wind shift -0.7. She adjusted instantly, her breath steady. She squeezed the trigger. The alligator roared again, echoing through the tower. The shell ripped into the sky. 7 seconds later, the launcher slipped from the man's grip. The rocket tumbled, detonating in a violent burst that lit the skyline. The plaza below erupted into screams. Agents rushed to cover the president, shoving him behind armored shields. Panic rippled through the sea of civilians. Alyssa didn't flinch. Her scope moved, locking on the third figure. This one was clever. He shifted inside the dark frame of a broken window, only parts of his body visible. The drone struggled to maintain lock. The AI warned of low probability. Numbers flashed red across her screen. She ignored them. The shadow leaned forward, rifle in hand. Just seconds remained before his shot. Alyssa drew in a sharp breath. She pulled the trigger. The rifle cracked like lightning. The round cut across miles of open air. 10 seconds. 11. Glass shattered. The hostile slumped backward into darkness. The window collapsed into silence. The radio exploded with voices. All hostiles eliminated. The president is safe. Relief surged through the comms, frantic and breathless. In the tower, Alyssa lowered the rifle slowly. Smoke curled from the barrel. Her arms trembled under the weight of what she had done. She looked down at Ethan Cole's lifeless body beside her. The man who had always taken the shot was gone. Now it was her finger that had saved thousands. The plaza below was chaos sirens, shouts, panicked civilians rushing for safety. But one truth remained. The president was alive. Alyssa sat back against the coal stone. Her chest rose and fell in ragged breaths. Her ears rang with echoes of thunder. No one had expected this moment. No one had imagined the quiet spotter would become the lone shooter. Yet here she was. 3 shots, 3 kills. An entire attack stopped from a single tower. Her scope still pointed across the horizon. Through the glass, she saw nothing but empty rooftops. The battle was finished, but her heart still pounded like war drums. She rested her cheek against the cooling stock of the rifle. For the first time, silence felt heavier than gunfire. The mission wasn't over. Not for her. The questions had only begun. Who was Alyssa Monroe? Why was the spotter holding the rifle? The plaza lights flickered against the night. Sirens wailed. In the shadows of the tower, Alyssa's eyes burned steady, knowing the truth no one else yet understood. The quiet guardian had stepped out of the background, and nothing in her world would ever return to what it was before. The weeks before the mission carried a constant chill. Alyssa Monroe arrived at the secure base with a single duffel, her presence barely acknowledged. The assignment was prestigious, protecting the president abroad, but she had been brought in for one role only: spotter. Her introduction drew little respect. A few of the older operators exchanged knowing smirks. One voice muttered, "She's here to read numbers." Nothing more. Ethan Cole, the lead sniper, stood front and center. Tall, broad-shouldered. His confidence filled the room. When he looked at Alyssa, it was as though she were transparent glass. Training began under the hard sun. Alyssa carried her binoculars, her rangefinder, and her notebook. Ethan set up the alligator rifle, adjusting its massive scope with practiced ease. Alyssa read the wind, calculated a correction, and gave him the figures. Ethan ignored them. He fired on instinct, the round drifting wide, dust puffed up well left of the target. He cursed lightly, then smirked. "It's fine. Even the best miss." The team laughed with him, not at the number she had called. Later that day, she tracked a shimmering mirage across the horizon. She called it out. Warning of distortion that would drag his shot off course. Ethan shook his head, lined up, and squeezed. The bullet slammed short into dirt. Still, no acknowledgement. He shrugged. Not every shot's perfect. Her warning dissolved into the air. That evening, Alyssa sat alone in the barracks. Her notebook filled with scrawled figures, wine charts, temperature conversions, humidity notes. She cross-checked them against the AI's ballistic models, fine-tuning her instincts to match. Others spent their nights joking in the mess hall. She spent hers tracing bullet paths with her pen, rehearsing shots she was never allowed to take. Each calculation lived only in her pages, never in the rifle's scope. The compound bristled with technology. Drones carried thermal optics and laser markers. The AI fed real-time data to every unit. Most operators treated it casually, glancing at the numbers when convenient. Alyssa treated it as gospel. She tested it, corrected it, sharpened it until her mind became a living extension of the machine. On one exercise, she saw a gust change direction at altitude. She called for a full mill correction. Ethan waved her off, pulled the trigger, and missed by meters. He spat into the dirt, muttered about bad luck, and moved on. Each dismissal pressed deeper. The others began to mirror him. A roll of the eyes when she spoke, a smirk when she lifted her notebook. She carried it without reaction, absorbing their doubt into silence. Yet her silence was not weakness. Each failed shot from Ethan confirmed what she already knew: her math was right. The rifle was wrong only because the shooter refused to listen. She sharpened her focus further. Dust rising from a truck convoy, the flutter of a bird in crosswind. The way grass leaned against invisible pressure, she recorded all of it. These were truths no one else noticed. One night, a young operator caught sight of her pages. Lines of formulas stretched margin to margin, annotated with symbols. He frowned, muttered, "You're overthinking this," and walked away. The notebook snapped closed. The commander introduced her at the next briefing with little weight. "Monroe, spotter. She'll handle the scope." The label sank like stone. No one argued. Ethan reinforced it every day. "I fire, you read. That's the job. Don't forget it." His tone carved the hierarchy into stone. During downtime, Alyssa wandered into the armory. The alligator rested in its case, Silent. Immense. She ran her hand over the cold barrel, tracing its grooves as if memorizing the weapon without ever firing it. She practiced in simulations with the AI, feeding it impossible variables, high-altitude winds, sudden pressure drops, even Earth's curvature at extreme distance. She solved them all. The AI confirmed her answers again and again. Still, when drills returned to live fire, Ethan held the trigger. She called numbers. He waved them away. Misses were shrugged off. Her accuracy was invisible. The repetition cut deep. She wondered sometimes if she would ever be more than a background figure. Yet she never quit. Each dismissal added fuel to a quiet fire that burned low but steady. She asked herself questions in silence. What if the sniper went down? What if comms failed? Could she, in theory, run the rifle herself? She never voiced these thoughts, but she rehearsed them every night. Her determination had roots. Years earlier, she had lost her brother in combat, a sniper like Ethan, proud, bold, cut down in an ambush overseas. She had sworn then to learn what he knew, to see the battlefield as he had. That vow carried her here. The team never heard that story. She kept it locked behind her eyes. They saw only the quiet woman with the notebook, not the sister who carried a ghost in her memory. Weeks passed. Final rehearsals approached. The president's schedule loomed. In one exercise, Ethan missed half his shots past 3 kilometers. Alyssa called corrections, precise and certain. He ignored them all. That night, she packed her gear neatly, binoculars, notebook, rangefinder. She stared at the closed rifle case across the room, knowing it would never open for her. She lay awake, the ceiling above blank and silent. In her head, she replayed the scenarios. One by one, she saw the possibilities: sniper down, chain of command broken, civilians exposed. Each time she asked herself the same question. Would she step forward? Could she? Her heart whispered yes. The world had not yet asked, and so she waited, silent, in the shadow they had placed her in. But when the day came, she was ready. The morning of the event dawned with a strange stillness. Streets were sealed, barricades in place, and rooftops occupied by silent shapes. The plaza had been cleared hours earlier, swept by security, but the tension in the air remained sharp. Alyssa Monroe climbed the spiral of the old bell tower with Ethan Cole ahead of her. He carried the rifle case slung casually over his shoulder. She carried her binoculars, rangefinder, and the notebook that rarely left her side. From the tower's peak, the entire square stretched like a stage. Flags lined the grandstand. Loudspeakers crackled as crowds filled the seats. The president's motorcade was minutes from arrival. Ethan set the Snipex Alligator on its bipod, muttering about the perfect vantage. Alyssa unpacked her equipment in silence. She adjusted her scope, linked the drone feed to her monitor, and synced the AI ballistics computer. Through the drone's thermal view, she spotted a faint heat signature on the east roof. She pressed her mic. Possible contact. 300 meters. East building. Ethan glanced through his scope, then shook his head. That's a vent pipe. Don't get jumpy. His tone was dismissive, final. Her gut twisted, but she held her silence. She had been ignored too many times to expect otherwise. Still, the signal pulsed again on her display. The motorcade rolled into the plaza. Engines growled low. Secret Service spread in practiced formation. The president stepped out to a wave of cheers. The first shot came before Alyssa could blink. A violent crack split the air. Ethan's head jerked back, blood spraying across the floorboards. His body slumped over the rifle, lifeless. For a second, everything froze. Alyssa's mind went blank. Then the radio erupted in chaos. Sniper down, Alpha 2 is down. Her breath came sharp, ragged. She pushed Ethan's body aside and dragged the alligator toward herself. The weight of the weapon pressed against her palms. Through her spotting scope, she found them. 3 shapes, 3 threats. One prone with a high-caliber rifle aimed at the grandstand. Another steady with an RPG launcher ready to fire. A third moving inside a shattered window, adjusting his position. The crowd below had no idea. The president remained on stage, waving to thousands, oblivious to the crosshairs aimed at him. Alyssa's heart thundered. Her fingers brushed the cold steel. No one else had this angle. No one else had this shot. The radio screamed, "We've lost Overwatch. Eastern Nest is blind." Voices shouted for backup, but backup was too far away. She whispered under her breath, barely a sound. "I can do this." Sliding into position, she pressed her cheek against the stock. The AI flickered numbers across the display: wind speed, humidity, drag. Her hands steadied, though her pulse did not. She aimed at the first hostile, the man behind the chimney. His scope pointed directly at the president. The drone tagged him with a faint laser. Her breath slowed. The trigger gave way under her finger. The alligator roared like thunder. The recoil rattled her bones. The round tore into the distance, carrying 12 seconds of silence. She didn't wait for confirmation. She shifted immediately, eyes locking on the RPG operator. He was braced, launcher aimed downward toward the plaza. Her monitor blinked crosswind correction needed. She clicked adjustments with a calm born of years of ignored preparation. Trigger pulled. The rifle thundered again. The round streaked invisible across the skyline. 7 seconds later, the launcher slipped from the man's grip. It struck the rooftop tiles, detonating in a fiery burst. The explosion lit the air, consuming him instantly. Panic spread below. Civilians screamed. Agents scrambled, shielding the president, dragging him backward. But Alyssa wasn't finished. The third figure remained, the shadow in the window. He moved with discipline, peeking only for seconds at a time. The drone struggled to keep lock. The AI warned in red low probability. Her throat tightened. Her mind screamed at the risk. Yet she steadied her breathing, letting instinct guide her. She pressed the trigger. The alligator roared once more, smoke curling from the barrel. 10 seconds. 11. The round shattered glass. The hostile staggered, collapsing backward into the dark. The radio exploded. All hostiles neutralized. The president is secure. Voices carried relief, frantic, almost disbelieving. Alyssa slumped against the tower wall. Her arms trembled violently, the rifle's weight immense. Smoke hung thick in the air. Ethan's body lay at her feet, eyes lifeless. She forced herself not to look. She had no time for grief, only for survival. Below, the plaza was chaos sirens, fleeing civilians, security swarming. Yet the president lived. 3 shots had altered history. Her headset buzzed with frantic voices. "Identify shooter at Alpha 2. Who fired those rounds?" She didn't answer. She couldn't. Her lips parted, but no sound came. Instead, she rested her hand on the rifle's hot barrel. For years, she had carried numbers, formulas, calculations. Now she had carried the shot. She inhaled sharply, chest burning. In her heart, she knew the truth. The moment had come, and she had stepped forward. No one had believed in her. No one had expected her. But in that tower, Alyssa Monroe became the one person between a president and certain death. And she knew the world outside would never understand how it happened. The plaza emptied under flashing lights. Sirens wailed as agents rushed the president into armored vehicles. Engines roared, tires screeched, and the convoy disappeared into the night. From the bell tower, Alyssa Monroe lowered the rifle. Smoke curled around her, the scent of gunpowder clinging to her skin. Her chest heaved as she stared at her trembling hands. Medics climbed the spiral stairs. They carried Ethan's body down without a word, boots heavy on the stone steps. Alyssa followed slowly, the alligator still hot in her grip. At the base of the tower, the team gathered in silence. Some avoided her eyes. Others stared, unsettled by what they had witnessed. She felt their doubt shift into something else, something harder to define. Hours later, the safe house doors shut tight. The debriefing room was dim, shadows stretching across tired faces. Coffee steamed on the table, untouched. The commander stood at the front, his expression carved from stone, his voice cut through the tension. If not for Monroe, today would have ended in disaster. The president is alive because she acted. No applause followed. No cheers. Only a heavy silence that carried weight stronger than words. Elissa sat still, her pulse thudding in her ears. The others shifted in their seats, stealing glances at her. For the first time, no one dismissed her presence. She was no longer invisible. When the meeting broke, she lingered behind. The alligator lay closed in its case on the table. She stared at it, hearing Ethan's old words echo. I take the shot. You feed me the math. That rifle belonged to him. Now it belonged to no one. She returned to her bunk. The barracks were quiet, the laughter of past nights gone. She lay on her bed staring at the ceiling, replaying the 3 shots in her mind. Each one carried the weight of thousands of lives. Sleep came late, heavy and restless. When dawn broke, the compound stirred with a new rhythm. A replacement sniper had been flown in overnight. In the equipment room, Elissa found him waiting. Younger than Ethan, quieter, his eyes sharp but steady. He placed the Snipex alligator gently on the table between them. He looked at her without arrogance. Do you want spotter or sniper? I'll follow your lead. The words struck her harder than any recoil. For the first time, the choice was hers. Her hand hovered over the rifle, fingers brushing the cold steel. Then she slid it back toward him. I'll take the scope, she said softly. He nodded without hesitation. No smirk, no doubt, only trust. Elissa lifted her binoculars, the straps settling around her neck. Her notebook rested beneath her arm. Familiar tools, familiar weight. As she stepped outside, the wind caught her hair. She raised the scope, scanning the horizon. The rooftops stretched endless, shadows sharp against the morning sun. The team passed her in the corridors that day. None spoke, but their eyes told the story. Respect where once there had been dismissal, a quiet acknowledgement she had earned with fire. No medals pinned to her chest, no ceremonies, no cameras. She didn't want them. What she carried inside mattered more. She had answered the question only she had ever asked, what if the sniper fell that night? She returned to the range. The new sniper fired the alligator. She called the wind, the distance, the correction. His shots landed true each time. He glanced back at her with a simple nod of trust. For the first time, her voice was not background noise. It was the voice that guided the rifle. Days passed. Missions continued. Elissa's role never changed on paper. She was still the spotter, still the one reading the invisible lines of wind and light. But now, no one doubted her place. In the solitude of her station, she felt a strange peace. She didn't need to fire again. She didn't need to prove anything. She had already rewritten the story of who she was. The shadow had stepped into the light once, then chosen to return, not from weakness, but from strength. Because sometimes the quiet guardian saves the nation by standing exactly where no one expects. Later that week, the commander found her alone. He placed a file on the desk. Inside was a grainy still from drone footage the moment she fired the second shot. He met her eyes. The president asked to meet you, privately. Elissa turned the page. In the image, smoke curled from the rifle's barrel. For a second, she saw herself not as shadow, but as flame. She closed the file gently. I'll go, she said. When the meeting came, it was brief. The president shook her hand, his grip firm. His words were quiet. You didn't just save me. You saved what I represent. Thank you. Then he left, surrounded by guards, leaving Elissa in the silence of her own thoughts. She never spoke of it to the team. To them, she was still the spotter. That was enough. The last image was this Elissa Monroe at her post, eyes pressed to glass, breath steady. A storm gathered on the horizon. She whispered numbers only she could see. The mission would come, and when it did, she would be ready.